Hey, what's up, players? Shikara and I back again, and we're going to do another video in our series called Pop, 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 Another Server Drop. And that's the series where I go through a variety of different capture the flags to teach basic hacking concepts. And I go a little bit more into detail than some for their walkthroughs because I want to kind of make sure that we don't fall into the script kiddie style of just copy and paste and doing whatever they tell you in the walkthrough. I want to make sure that you understand the concepts behind it. So these are all self-contained, essentially, videos where in other videos I may have explained like port scanning. In this one, I'll explain it again because I'm assuming the fact that maybe you haven't seen some of my other videos. So I want to make sure it's all, it's all relevant in this particular one here. I want to make sure that we're looking at help files and making sure we're looking at what switches we're doing, what methodology we use to actually perform the attack, and that's kind of, in my opinion, the best way to go about this. And capture the flags are some of the best ways to do it to kind of hone your skills. Now, keep in mind, a lot of the capture flags are not really true to life, as opposed to more of a learning platform to use and utilize different techniques and methods and tools. You most likely won't find as many machines out there in the world that are as exploitable as some of these, but it's still a great tool to use to do it. But there's that little caveat there. Don't think, hey, I've mastered 50 different other CTFs. I'm ready to go ahead and knock the world out. Well, you may come across some different issues after that. But either way, I still like to use TryHackMe. I always use that one I just find it very easy. I pay for the service, $10 a month, so I get access to all of the actual rooms. So I'm not exactly sure if this one's a free room or not, but it's called Retro, and I did a write-up for it and on my website, but I never did a video of it doing it, so I'm going to go ahead and do that today. So let's get popping. All right, so Retro. Let's see here. So it looks like we only have three things we have to, so it's not much of a guided tour here. Essentially, they want to know three different things. Now, I've already filled these out, but I'll show you how I came across this information. So the web server is running on the target. What is the hidden directory the website lives on? So you have to find that out. And then you have to find the flag for the user.txt file. And then you have to find the flag that's in the root.txt file. So that's really all we have to go on. We have our IP address up here. So what do we always start off with? Well, I always start off with an Nmap scan. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I ran it ahead of time because it does take a little time to run. But let me go and break down what this is all about. So this is what they call a port scan. And if you're not familiar with that, let me give you a brief summary of it. And ports on a computer are basically an entryway into a computer. So for example, there are some well-known, what they call well-known ports that use a couple different protocols we'll talk about called TCP and UDP. And if you were going to go ahead and ask for a page from a web server that was unencrypted, HTTP, that web server will be listening on something called port 80. Now, from your computer asking for the actual, whatever the content is, your port number coming out of your computer will be different. I'll talk about that in a second, but you're going to a port number that's always listening on port 80. Now, you can host a web server on a different port if you want, 9,000, it doesn't really matter. You can call it whatever you want. However, if it's not the common standard port or well-known port, the user will have to put the IP or the URL, then a colon, and then the port number. If it's hosted on the well-known port of 80 or 443 for secure HTTP, then you don't have to put any colon or anything like that. So most people will generally just put their web pages on either port 80 or port 443. Nmap is a tool to be able to scan that. Now there's 65,535 ports available on the computers, and it's both for a protocol called TCP and UDP. Now, the first 0 through 1023, because 0 is considered a number, 1024 in all, those are considered well-known ports, and they would be things like port 80, port 22 for Telnet. Is it Telnet? No, I'm sorry, 23 is Telnet. 22 is SSH. So different common services that you would see, they have a well-known port that's assigned to them by, I believe it's IANA, I think is how you pronounce it. Then after the 1024 on up to about, I don't know, maybe 49,000-ish, you'll have what's called registered ports. And these are ones that software has registered these ports. So let's say you had a Citrix application running on a specific port 9,000, right? You would register that with IANA, and they would have that port registered to you. So when you see 9,000, it is associated with whatever that software is. And then from the 49,000-ish on up to the rest of 65,535, these are what they call dynamic ports, and these are the ports that are assigned dynamically to your computer as you send the request. These, like I said, are dynamic, so they're not always the same. But when you go ahead and request a page from a web server, the server's listening on port 80, but your computer is coming out of port, 60,000 or what have you. It's going to be one of those up in that range. So what Nmap is a tool that will scan ports. Now, I'll tell you on this particular one here, I'll go over the different switches that we have. And when I say TAC, I mean dash. So when I go over these switches, just understand that Nmap will scan a variety of ports in a variety of different ways. So when I run Nmap and I do a TAC-N, I'm basically saying don't worry about doing any type of DNS resolution. I'm using my IP addressing, which is right there. The TAC capital P-N means I already know the host is up and alive. I don't need you to ping it because there are some servers that will disable ICMP ping. And so your Nmap scan will end abruptly because it doesn't accept pings. So I basically say, don't worry about pinging. I know it's alive. And then you have a dash capital A. In this particular case, this one here bundles 4 different things in one. What it will do first is it will run a version scan, which is dash S capital V, and it has a list of known signatures of applications. And if it probes the application, and the application responds with a certain signature, it can say with a good degree of certainty, it is this version of VSFTPD 1.3.4 or what have you. It'll do that based off a thing they have. And then it will do a dash capital O, which is an operating system scan, and it will try to poke and prod and see what signatures come back on the response and give a pretty good degree of certainty what operating system that server is running, either Linux or Windows or what version of Windows. Then it will run an S capital C scan, which is called a script scan. And there's a scripting engine that is used in Nmap to kind of further it from just a basic port scanner into more of an exploitation tool as well. And there is a category called default where they're all safe scans. And when I say safe, I mean they're not going to DDoS, they're not going to break the server it's running on. They're not intrusive. And they're very common to run. So that whole default category of scripts is called default. So S capital C will run that whole category of scripts all in one go. And then lastly, it will run a trace route. So here all together, we see the full scan that I want to do here. And this is, by the way, called aggressive mode. So if you're looking to do stealthy approach for scanning, don't use that. It's pretty noisy. By the way, I'll give a caveat as well. If you don't own the site and you don't have permission to the site you're going to, outside of just these capture the flags, they're intentional. But a normal website out there on the public, do not scan it. Okay? Do not scan it if you don't have permission to it. So here, after running all of that business, we see that it does gives me port 80 and it gives me port 3389. Now, I will give you also this caveat that I did not specify the ports I wanted. So by default, it will scan the first, it will scan the most used, the most common 1,000, how did I put that? The most common 1,000 TCP ports available. So 3389 is obviously above 1,000, but it's one of those common ones that people will scan. So unless I specify that I want all 65,535 ports scanned, which is a dash P dash, if I don't specify that, by default, it's only going to scan TCP, and it's only going to scan the most common 1,000 ports. Now, I can also scan for UDP by using S capital U. as well. But just know that this scan here only will scan TCP and only the common ones. So there may actually be more ports than this. So therefore, in your capture the flag journey, if you do need to find more ports open, try -p-. But this case, we have port 80, which is a web page, more than likely. And then these right here are the scripts from the default category that we were talking about. Okay, and they gave me information, a little bit more information, that it's an IIS Windows server. And the 3389 is typically used for RDP. So we know there's probably remote desktop protocol in here. So we can gather this is a Windows machine more than likely. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go ahead and first thing we'll do is we'll go visit the web page real quick here. So let's grab this and we'll go see what's on the web page. All right, so this shows me that it's just the default IIS start page. So there's no real content on this. This is just what happens when you run IIS by default and you don't actually put an index page of any type with any content. So that really does us no good. So what we can do next is we can run something called the directory buster. In this case here, we think, okay, well, on port 80 of this IP address, this is what I see. But what if there's other directories that they don't show or it's not visible? Now, the first thing you would try in most cases would be to add a /robots.txt to the end of the actual root page. Here, they don't actually have it, but in some cases, you'll come across sites that will actually have it. For example, if you go to facebook.com and you do /robots.txt, it'll show a list of disallowed directories that they do not want these crawlers to crawl. Okay, so you get your Apple bots, your Bing bots, your Google bots. They're basically saying, don't crawl any of these directories. So the bad guy, you're thinking, why? Why don't you want them looking for those? So to us, they're interested. So therefore, let's go check, see what this is, right? That's what this is for. But this one does not have it. You as a web server would put that in the root of your server, but in this case, it's not there. So what we're going to do is we're going to use another tool called GoBuster. So if we do GoBuster, and then we say TAC-H, because we always want to find out. We don't want to fall into skitty status, script kiddie status. We want to find out exactly what is going on and have a methodology to it. We do want to enumerate some directories, so we're going to use the dir portion of it here. And in this particular case here, let me see, what do we want to use on it? Right here, we want to use the TAC-W for sure, because we want to add a word list. We'll use a word list on Kali. By the way, I'm on Kali here. There's a few different tools like dirbuster. I don't prefer using dirbuster, but they have some good word lists. So we'll probably use a dirbuster list, maybe the big.txt. But essentially, they're not telling you what else to type in here. They should be having a TAC-U, but if that's the case, then you would do man GoBuster, and that will show you the manual page. There's no manual page for it. Interesting. But then from there, you would then go ahead and look up the manual page for GoBuster. So we'd say manual GoBuster, just to find some examples of running it. And I don't know if this will show us anything, but let's take a look. Oh, this is just the actual site for it. So it's kind of odd how the basic help file does not tell us the -U for URL. Okay, here we go. dir. There we go. So under the dir mode options, there is a URL right there. So you can either use -U or --URL. So that's what we're going to use, is that one. And we're also going to use the word list portion of it as well. Now you can also add in extensions, which are pretty cool. So if you do a -X, you can say, look only for PHP files or TXT files or what have you. Pretty cool stuff. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and use this. So we'll say GoBuster. We'll say dir. TAC-U, in this case here, it is our page here. Copy that. And then we want to use a word list, and we'll use the big word list from dirbuster or dirb. So that for Kali is under USR, share, word lists, and I think it's under dirb. And I think it's called, yep, big.txt. Okay, we'll run that, see what happens. And what this will do is it has a big list of slash directories that are common, and they would do it in quick fashion. They would actually append it to the URL and try to see if there's any 200 OK. In other words, did it actually connect to it? If there's a 302 redirect or what have you. The idea is for us to see if we can find another folder that is actually part of the web page that may be of interest to us. Maybe there's an admin page. Maybe there's a folder called /secret, right? But all we have to go on currently is just this page here, which gives us really nothing. Now, we could obviously go into the 3389 RDP, but we don't have any credentials for that. So this is kind of the direction we want to go as we started off. Plus, that's one of the first questions here, is what's the hidden directory that the website actually lives on? Because obviously, it's not this website. It's not just the regular default port 80. It's on a different one. So while that's running, I will tell you that it is actually /retro. So we'll come back and peep this here in just a moment just to show you the full deal of it. But while we're waiting on that, let's go ahead and just do this and go to /retro. That way we don't waste any time on the video. So we can see here, hopefully, there we go. We can see that it does have actual content on this page, which we haven't seen yet, and it's only 41% done. When it's done, we'll come back and look and verify that that indeed did find it. So here we see Retro Fanatics. Sweet. This looks like 80s stuff, man. I love the 80s. 80s was the best era ever. So it looks like we have some dude named Wade. It's kind of interesting. So kind of open that up in a different tab here. We'll see what he's all about. Wade. Post made by Wade. Ready Player One. Now, if I'm not mistaken, now I did see Ready Player One, but I think there was a character on there. I think the main character was called Wade, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, Ready Player One, Wade. I think that was the case. Wade Watts. Yep, that was what it was. Wade Watts. Cool. All right. So yeah, so Ready Player One, a great movie, by the way. So there's a guy named Wade. So obviously this guy's a fan of it. Hey, let's check back on our Durbuster for a second. Nope, it's not done. So let's check out this Ready Player One here. See if there's anything interesting there. I can't believe the movie based on my favorite book of all time is going to come out in a few days. Maybe it's because my name is so similar with the main character. I honestly feel a deep connection with the main character, Wade. Nerd. No, I'm just kidding. I keep mistyping the name of his avatar. What was the name of his avatar? Protagonist, poor from Wade's name, his Oasis character, Parzival. Okay. So I'm going to guess off first glance, possibly that's the password for this guy, and possibly his username is Wade, and that may be our RDP. Let's read on. I keep mistyping the name of his avatar whenever I log in, but I think I'll eventually get it down either way. I'm really excited to see this movie. Oh, awesome. One comment on Ready Player One. Leaving myself a note here just in case I forget how to spell it. Parzival. Oh, okay, there we go. So that confirms that must be his password. Excellent. All right, so let's go back and look at our Durbuster here. I mean our GoBuster. There we go. So we could see there after it was done running, it did find that retro directory. So that's complete. Very cool. All right, so we now know Parzival. All right, that's the one we want. And let's go ahead and close this. We don't need that. All right, so I think we have enough information to go on to possibly try a RDP, I think. So there is one that comes with Kali Linux. It's called X-Free RDP right here. So let's go ahead and man that and see what we can find here. X-Free RDP. Because we want to go ahead and try this, try to see if we can RDP in with the username of Wade and the password of Parzival. So let's see how we would do that. So as we scroll down through this sort of thing here, we would assume possibly that something U would probably be for username. So let's go and see if that's the case. We'll scroll all the way down here and look at the U's. Actually, we'll hit P first. So let's see if password is, okay, there we go. So we know the password is going to be /P : and then the password. Okay, good to go. Let's see what the username one, I'm guessing it's probably /U, but let's verify. All right, here we go. /U, username, very cool. All right. So we know /U : Wade /P : Parzival is what we're going to be using to log in. Oh, here we go. /V server and port. Now in this case, it's using a well-known port of 3389. So I don't know if we actually need to put the port in. We may just be able to put the IP address in and see what happens. But basically, we're trying to remote desk protocol into this guy's machine. So knowing that information, that /U : Wade /P : Parzival /V : IP address, that's where we come up with this one here. So let's add the IP address in. Grab that. All right, so we should have the command xfreeRDP /U : Wade /P : Parzival, and then this IP address here. So let's go ahead and try this bad boy. Copy it. We'll hit Q to quit out of the help file. And let's go ahead and rock and roll, baby. What do we got? Do you trust the above certificate? I do. Boom! There we go. Look at that. Pop, pop, pop. Another server drop. And we are in Wade's desktop. Excellent. And look at that, how convenient it is. There's user.txt. Love it. And there's our first flag. Excellent. So that's where you would find the first flag to answer this question here. Okay? All right, now we're looking for a root flag, and we're assuming that we're not root. So in that particular case here, well, we don't want to just assume. Let's go ahead and just try and see if we can get into the administrative folder. So let's open up our PC, and we'll go to users. Oh, okay, we don't have permission for that. So obviously we're not administrative user, so we need to do some sort of exploit of some sort. What do we get to deal with here on the desktop? So we have our user text, we have our Google, we have our recycle bin. Let's check, see what's in there. Ah, look at that. What is that? HHUPD. I don't know what that is. Let's take a look and see. HHUPD. Let's see what that's all about. Oh, a CVE. That means we have a vulnerability. So this is a vulnerable application of some sort. Okay, so it looks like there is a privilege escalation vulnerability in the Windows certificate dialog, allowing an attacker to easily elevate privileges to NT authority system. And it is documented as this number here. This is a good video demonstrated in this video of YouTube. We won't watch that because, well, we're in the middle of this. In this case, they use the hhupd.exe to perform the attack. Interesting. Here's one from the guy that made Mimikatz. Let's see what that's all about. Okay, that's kind of odd. Kiwi test. I don't know what that's all about. Either way. Now, I will say this. I will say that I did try this particular exploit here. Of course, you do not need HTTP to exploit. It's just easier. Okay. So in this particular one, if I were to run, so let me go back here. So we can assume that running this will start the exploit in hand. Now I've already watched the video that they had listed on there, so let me explain kind of what's going on here. So I'm going to double click this. Continue as an admin. Okay, let me close that out for a second. Let me run this as admin then. So I'm going to right click, run as admin. So on the video, what they're saying is when you get this prompt, according to the vulnerability of this server 2016, if you click show more details, and you click show information about the publisher's certificate, they're saying that if you were to click on this while you were trying to run this as admin, if you were to click on this, it should open up in a browser, and it would open up the Internet Explorer or whatever you have for your default browser as admin. And then from there, you would run whatever the command is from that exploit, and it would actually give you system NT authority privileges. However, 6 times I've tried this with this lab, and I cannot get it to actually pop up. So there's something wrong with the lab where it's not recognizing the default browser. And I also went ahead and tried, before running this, to actually set the default browser to, I don't know, I think it was just Internet Explorer, because I figured that's probably what they want. So under this here, I even come down and I choose my default browser to be that, okay? And when I still try to run it as admin and try to go to this, again, it's not letting me click on anything. This is grayed out, so I can't use it. So essentially what they're aiming for you to use, I think, in this lab, based on this being available, is I think they want you to go this route to get system authority privileges. However, something wrong with the lab where it doesn't do that. So I had to do a little searching around to see if I can find anything else for this. But first, we need to find out what we're running. So if I say msinfo 32 on this guy's machine here, you can see we're running a Server 2016 standard build, and here's the build version number. If you looked for that specifically, there are some different exploits in the site called ExploitDB, specific to that. And there's a site that I like to go to under GitHub called Windows Exploits. And these ones here I typically will try first because they've always been pretty good for me. And I can put these in the links in the chat. But as you go down through these different ones, you'll see which ones they actually affect. And you can see this does not affect Server 2016. This one here also, I believe. Oh, nope, that one doesn't affect 2016 either. But the rest of these, it does have a vulnerability for Server 2016. So you can try to run any of these last three that you want. The one that I found worked the best for me, or the most reliable, was this 02131 right here. Windows COM Elevation of Privilege Vulnerability. Now this particular one here has an exploit database, which is the site you would typically go to get exploits that you want to run. Something I want to point out, again, I keep stressing we don't want to be script kiddie, as it were. We want to understand what is going on here. We don't want to just run an exploit from an exploit database of any type, because there is times where there's no honor amongst thieves, and the attackers will actually post exploits in an exploit database of some sort, not specifically this one, where they'll actually backdoor your own machine. So they want to basically make an exploit that will exploit you trying to use the exploit. So exploit database is my favorite because they typically will go, from what I understand, is they vet all of the different exploits and verify they're not. It's a good idea to read through the actual exploit itself, and if you know anything about the code and C and all that other stuff, look through it first, verify that they don't have any sort of backdoor that is going to go ahead and trigger on your system, and then you can kind of be, okay, I think I can use this exploit. In this particular case, there's a lot of reading that you can do here, so I would recommend reading up on this particular one. But it is related in short summary to the COM object, component object model. And the idea of being able to use COM to have different languages translate to each other, like JavaScript, C, and all these other different things, it has to use something called a marshaller. And if you actually look up any of that information, there's a long diatribe documentation about what this marshaller service does. But essentially, that marshaller service is the problem for this particular exploit. So this particular version of Windows Server and this particular version of the marshaller for COM is what's actually going to be causing the problem. Down here, they give a proof of concept and how to run it. And they also have a downloadable executable that you can download here under exploit. So let's go ahead and grab that. Click on download. And then from there, you can do the CPP on that. Or what you can do is you can just go ahead back to the one I was using, which was this one. And you can go ahead and just download the actual executable here. Now we are using 64-bit, so I'm going to go ahead and download the 64-bit version of this. Click on download, and we'll save it. And I'll put it in root. I'll just make a folder I'll call exploits. And we'll put it in there. Awesome. Now I'm going to go ahead and navigate over to there. And let's see, exploits. And we should see it there. Awesome. So what we're going to do now is we're going to run a Apache server. So we're going to say Python 3 -m http .server. And we'll say port, I don't know, 8002 sounds good. What I'm doing is basically anything that's in this directory I'm currently in, I'm running an actual web server from this directory. So if I look at my address, if you're using TryHackMe, you're going to want your ton0 address, not your ETH0, because you're tunneled in via the OpenVPN thing that they use. So for me, I'm using my ton0 one, which is this address here. So basically, the RDP, or the victim, would have to download this exploit from here. So just because I'm the one that actually RDP'd into this, I'm going to go ahead and just download it directly from my server. So we'll go ahead and open up Chrome, and we're going to pop in our address, and it was :8002 because I had specified that as a port. So if we come back here, see right there, 8002, and we're going to download this file here onto that machine. Just like that. And we'll see here, wait for it to get done, and then we'll unzip it, and we'll run it and see what happens. Again, make sure you read up on the actual exploit itself, understand what it's doing. It is related to the component object model and how the marshaller service can be exploited with this particular script. And well, it's taking a while here to get it rocking and rolling. And this is typically how people will do or send exploits to a victim machine. Sometimes if it's a Linux machine, if you've broken in and it's on the temp directory, like you've navigated to the temp directory, which sometimes is going to be writable, they'll then host the exploit themselves on their own server. Then they'll do a wget to that particular location. That's typically a way you can do it there. So pretty good stuff, pretty awesome. And I don't know why it's taking so long here to download this. Maybe Chrome sees it as bad. Who knows? So I'm going to pause the video for a second here, and if it takes a while, we'll find out why. Be back in a second. All right, looks like we did finally finish it downloading. I'm not sure why it took so long, but either way, we're going to go ahead and double-click and run this bad boy and see what happens. Bing! Oh, look at that. So it gave me an administrative command prompt. Let's do who am I. And there we go. Pop, 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 another server drop. So now that we are NT Authority system, I believe we can probably go to C:/administrators. Let's see if I can spell it correctly. And I'm going to assume it's on the desktop because the first one was on the Wade's desktop. So let's assume that, and we'll say desktop. Oops, I'm sorry. It's actually under C users. Why is that bugging out on me? All right, let's try this again. cdc:/users/administrator. And we're going to say desktop. Excellent. And we'll do a dir. And look at that, root.txt.txt. So in Windows, you can use the type command to be able to see the contents of a file. So we'll do that. And there we go. Pop, 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 another server drop. So basically, using this particular exploit that we had found here, we were able to go ahead and get administrative privileges on this particular box. Now, again, if you do this, TryHackMe, it may work differently for you. I don't know. But for me, like I said, the one that was on the actual desktop, which was the HHUPD, whatever it was, is actually not working for me. So I chose to find a different route to do it. And there's multiple ways you can do that. But ExploitDB is always a good one to go ahead and try out here. And always read through the exploit code. And hopefully, if you understand it properly, look to see, make sure there's no backdoor or anything bad there. But exploit database is usually very good for vetting that sort of thing. So that is how you would actually exploit a system like that and download it, for instance, on the victim. But here we got access to RDP. We got some information off the website that they were very, open about, apparently. And we were able to use those particular credentials to get in and do a little popping. So until next time, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Peace out, players.